We are confronting two deadly viruses these days. One is, of course, the deadly COVID-19, the coronavirus, and the other is the more venomous and malicious conspiracy virus. We may soon find vaccine for the first one. However, the second one may never find a cure as it constantly mutates to various forms, and the live DNA of this virus has a special knack of evading any truth vaccine. All the conspiracy stories doing rounds around corona are not simple innocuous ones, especially the ones that have its origin in the ultra-right propaganda manufacturing labs. These lies have clear agenda and targets. The fact that the current pandemic is being misused as an opportunity to reignite the jingoism and hatred with lies and gross misinformation is of great concern, as there may be many unsuspecting takers to the stories, innocently ingesting whatever is served. One of the conspiracy theories goes like this: China deliberately unleashed the coronavirus on themselves and the world so that the stock market will crash, following which China can buy all the shares of all the American companies. Ridiculous it is, but as usual, blatant lies, misinformation, fake stories, manufactured data, and fictitious sources are skillfully stitched together to deliver the venom. The World Health Organization has named the corona disease as coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 in short, and the virus causing the disease as severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 or SARS-CoV-2. However, many still like to call it Chinese virus or Wuhan virus, etc., to implicate China as the conscious perpetrators of the disease, though the US President himself has recently pulled back from calling the virus as China virus. Is the SARS-CoV-2 a genetically engineered virus manufactured in a lab as biological weapon, as these conspirators want us to believe? No. The answer is in absolute negative. The scientific community has categorically ruled out the possibility that the virus is genetically engineered, and rather has established that it's a product of evolution, having undergone numerous mutations and got transmitted from the wildlife to human. In fact, scientists did get to the root of this conspiracy theory and had comprehensively debunked them, as it is important to know the origin of the virus in order to develop effective vaccines. How did the scientists rule out that it's not engineered in labs? Well, by analyzing the genetic structure, or to be more specific, the RNA sequence and the characteristics of virus receptor binding domain called RBD, a feature of the virus that helps them to attach to the host cells. The fact that the virus does possess the feature acquired in the process of its evolution to evade human immune system also points to the fact that it wasn't created, neither deliberately nor accidentally, through cell culture, a process used in labs for conducting virological studies and experimental research. The study has revealed that the corona pandemic is caused by a natural virus, not one made in a lab. As per the study published on March 17 in the science journal Nature Medicine, the genetic structure of the SARS-CoV-2 virus reveals that it isn't a mix and match of any known viruses, as might be expected if it were human-made. The virus has unusual features that have only recently been identified in scaly anteaters called pangolins, and evidence that the virus came from nature, reports the study. Christian Anderson, an infectious disease researcher at the Scripps Research Institute in California, and a team of scientists from other research centers carried out this study. Anderson has said it was clear that the virus wasn't human made. Anyone hoping to create a virus would need to work with already known viruses and engineer them to have desired properties. But the SARS-CoV-2 virus has components that differ from those of previously known viruses. So they had to come from an unknown virus or viruses in nature. The paper says genetic data irrefutably show that SARS-CoV-2 is not derived from any previously used virus backbone. This is not a virus somebody would have conceived of and cobbled together. It has too many distinct features, some of which are counterintuitive. One wouldn't do this if you were trying to make a more deadly virus. Similarity of SARS-CoV-2 to bat and pangolin viruses is some of the best evidences that the virus is natural. This was just another animal spillover into humans. All the data show it is natural, says the scientists who were part of the research team. Dr. Francis Collins, the director of the National Institute of Health in the USA, says this study leaves little room to refute a natural origin of COVID-19. That is, there is absolutely no room to suspect an engineered or man-made virus. Most likely, the COVID-19 virus arose from a recombination of a virus found in bats and another virus possibly in pangolins, the anteater. So the story of China manufacturing the virus is a total bogus and has been completely debunked through scientific studies. Now, what is portrayed as the motivation behind such an action is even more ridiculous. The fake narrative goes on to say that China bought in bulk the shares of American companies to take control of the US firms and the world economy in general. This is not only absurd, but in fact the American analysts fear exactly the opposite. That is, their fear is, would American investors go and put their money in so many Chinese companies using this crash as an opportunity? In fact, there are also counter propaganda, especially in the Arab media, which portrays the pandemic as an American plot to destabilize Chinese economy. So let's come back to the point. Did Chinese really buy shares of American companies, either at Chinese exchanges or the American stock exchanges? First and foremost, Chinese investors cannot buy American stocks in the Chinese stock market. Why? The answer is simple. They are not listed in the Chinese stock market. Chinese stock market was opened for foreign companies only in the mid 2019 and no companies have been listed yet. So Chinese investors buying American stocks from Chinese market is ruled out. Of course, it doesn't matter to the fakers anyway. So that leaves the possibility of Chinese investors buying American stocks from the American stock market. Did it really happen? Just a cursory glance of the American market indexes would reveal that there was hardly any buying happening at all, and rather the market indexes were consistently hitting lower circuits, undergoing severe crash. The index trends reflects no such bulk buying at all. In fact, the American stock analysts and policymakers fear exactly the reverse. Their fear is that US investors would end up investing hugely in Chinese companies, that too of dubious background. The US had already started stopping its investors from investing in Chinese companies as part of US-China trade war even before the corona outbreak. America is trying its level best to stop its investors from investing money in Chinese companies. The US is also said to be looking at limiting the ability of government pension funds to participate in Chinese markets. US has been considering delisting Chinese companies from US stock exchanges as part of a broader effort to curb US investment in China. More than 150 Chinese companies are listed on the major US exchanges, worth a total of $1.2 trillion in market value as in February. If one goes by this theory, not only US companies but also those 150 plus Chinese companies would be equally vulnerable to being bought over in the US market. Thus, the fake narrative of Chinese buying major stakes in the US companies has absolutely no merit in it. Chinese stock market didn't crash much compared to many of the other world markets, though it did indeed witness a setback. The Chinese market benchmark, the Shanghai Composite Index (SCE), had marked its recent high point 3,115 on 13th January and slipped to 3,095 on 20th January when China officially announced the coronavirus outbreak. It fell to 2,746, that is from 3,095 to 2,746 on February 3rd, after the market was opened after the holidays. Now it's hovering around the same value, 2,700 plus, even now in the mid-March. So what was the reason for the Chinese markets to fare relatively better? One reason is that China has infused $174 billion stimuli package to their economy, and that kept the sentiments in the Chinese market in good spirits. The tremendous progress China made in controlling the spread of the pandemic also added to improved stock market sentiments. There is one more likely reason for the less volatility seen in China's share market. The reason is that the foreign capital accounts for only less than 4% of the entire share market in China. So there isn't anything to be bought over from the foreign hands in the Chinese market. Rather, the Chinese investors are in fact being encouraged to invest money in the Chinese companies in the Chinese stock market to showcase the resilience of their economy. Again, for the fakers, the data doesn't need to be accurate. Rather, data is conveniently manufactured by hook or crook to suit the fake narrative, and the truth remains obviously the immediate casualty. For example, they would insist that Beijing didn't have any corona cases and that's good enough proof for China's hands behind the pandemic. The fact is, of course, Beijing was very much impacted as well. There are, of course, many countries which are not impacted by corona, including, say, Singapore. Hopefully, the conspirators won't get any new ideas to run their imagination wild. The faker behind one of the stories wonders how Chinese could create a vaccine, and that is the proof that the formula of the virus was already with them. The only problem with that statement is that only the faker seems to know about the existence of such a vaccine, while even World Health Organization (WHO) has no knowledge about any such vaccine existing at all till date. Same sources that project China building a hospital in 2 weeks as proof of their prior knowledge of the pandemic will have no qualm in spreading fake messages about a hospital being built in Rajasthan in 2 days by Indian Army and going jingo about it. Well, The conspirator wouldn't even spare the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. As per the narrative, Ms. Pelosi is behind the deadly virus engineered by colluding with Chinese in an attempt to cripple American economy by bringing down Trump. Of course, sky is the limit when it comes to fictitious fake stories. The COVID-19 is a challenge to the whole world. We need to be united in the fight against this deadly disease, and cooperation beyond national boundaries to promote pursuit of science and knowledge alone will make us emerge victorious in this battle as well. All those who indulge in fake propaganda to serve their narrow interests are only harming this cause and are enemies of the humanity.